I live near County Road 6, and this happened on a Friday night when I left home after a huge fight with my husband. I drove down the empty highway, not knowing which way I was going. Then, at one point, I had to stop because tears were clouding my vision. I cried like a 6-year-old, sitting in my car for hours, then finally decided to pull over for the night. After driving for a few more minutes, I found this moderately looking hotel on the side of the road. It was not very expensive. The staff was quiet and showed me to my room. I threw my bag on the dirty sofa and went to take a hot shower, thinking it would calm me down. But when I came back to that cold bed, stress caught up to me. I have suffered from sleep paralysis on and off since my early 20s. It only happens when I am emotionally overwhelmed. For those who have never had sleep paralysis, it is a horrifying state to be in. My mind stays awake while my body shuts down, trapping me in between. I pushed all those negative thoughts down and lay down on the bed. I was already exhausted and not to mention emotionally drained. So, within a few minutes, I dozed off. For the first couple of hours, I slept like a rock. But suddenly, I woke up. I knew immediately what was happening. My eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling. My chest felt crushed beneath a heavy, invisible weight. My arms and legs were numbly locked into place. My breathing came in shallow, panicked gasps that did not feel like they were getting enough air into my lungs. I realized I am having another episode of sleep paralysis. The room felt colder than it should have been. The heater hummed weakly by the window, but the air against my skin was sharp, biting. At first, I noticed the bathroom. The lights were off. Immediately, I felt like something was not right in here. I never, ever sleep in complete darkness. I clearly remembered turning that light on before I went to bed. I also remembered hesitating at the switch. Now, the bathroom doorway was filled with thick darkness. I was trying my best to wake myself up, but I knew I could not because it was not something I could control. I was waiting for the moment to pass by, but I felt a gush of wind on my face. The windows were closed, and I was 200% sure that the wind came from above, like someone breathed on me. My eyes moved toward the ceiling vent. For a few seconds, I saw only darkness. Then I saw bright green eyes. They hovered in the shadows just inside the vent, fixed directly on me. I got into panic mode. I could feel the fear in my bones, but I could not get up. I tried convincing myself that it was all my imagination and there is no one actually inside that vent. When the vent cover made a soft metallic creak, it shifted slowly, bending outward by mere inches. Dust slid down onto my pillow in thin gray streaks. For the next few seconds, the darkness in the vent sent me into hyperventilating. I tried even closing my eyes, but I could not. I kept staring at the dark vent, still believing. I imagined those eyes when a head slowly popped up. There was a man inside that vent now, and he was completely bald. His scalp reflected the faint outside light like polished bone. There were no eyebrows above those glowing eyes, no eyelashes framing them, no stubble, no pores. His face looked wrong in a way my brain could not process. His breathing was wet and heavy, echoing faintly inside the ducts. He just watched me for God knows how long. Then his shoulders pressed through. I heard his bones cracking as his upper body started coming down from the vent. I wanted to scream and run away as far as I could, but again, I was glued to the bed like a statue. Slowly, he dropped his arms down from the vent. It was too long. His fingers were thin and bony, the nails slightly darkened. His hand descended inch by inch. He was reaching out to me. My entire body got covered in sweat, but he did not stop, just kept spreading his arm in my direction. I could feel cold rolling off my skin. The expression on his face was horrible. It was like he just wanted to get to me. My throat moved. No sound came. Suddenly, his index finger stopped less than an inch from my nose. He blinked for the first time and then said in a raspy, demonic voice, "Most of them scream and leave, but you stayed. I like that." I was still trying to process that all of this was happening in my head when lightning struck right outside my window. My body jolted upright as I screamed, the sound tearing violently from my throat. The bathroom light was on, and as I looked at the vent, it was sealed. The room was empty. I did not spend a second more in that room. Ran straight to my car and stayed in till sunrise. When the sun finally broke through the trees, I drove away to my sister's house. On the way, I told myself the same thing over and over, that it was all hallucinations. 3 weeks later, curiosity found me at 2:00 the morning. I was staring at my phone when I Googled that hotel. Most reviews were about poor maintenance and weak Wi-Fi, but one review sent a shiver down my spine. Someone mentioned waking up in the middle of the night with the feeling of being watched from the vent. I also found a second one where the reviewer mentioned seeing a dream about a bald man. My hands started shaking. I had never told anyone those details. To this day, I do not know if what I saw was real, but sometimes when I lie awake at night, I feel a cold draft fall straight down to my face. It gets me a pill to fall asleep after that.
I was driving west on Highway 417 toward Ottawa when the storm hit out of nowhere. 1 minute the road was clear, the next visibility dropped to almost nothing. Snow slammed against my windshield sideways, and the wind kept shoving my car, just enough to make the steering wheel feel loose in my hands. My gas was not critically low, but it was not great either. I checked my phone. No signal. I had not seen another vehicle in over 15 minutes. That is when I noticed the hotel sign. It was barely visible through the blowing snow, standing crooked at the edge of a dirt road that cut off the main highway. A single flickering bulb swung violently beneath it. Night Rest Hotel, 2 kilometers. I slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder. Against my better judgment, I managed to get 1 bar of service and searched for the hotel. Every result said the same thing: closed permanently. No website, no recent reviews. One article mentioned something about structural damage years ago. According to the internet, this place should not have existed anymore. But the sign was lit, and behind me, the storm had swallowed the road completely. Sitting in my car all night in sub-zero temperatures suddenly felt like the more dangerous option. So, I turned onto the dirt road. The road was worse than I expected. Deep potholes, patches of ice under mud, trees closing in tight on both sides. It felt like I stepped into a different world, where I am not welcome. After about 2 kilometers, I saw a neon sign buzzed weakly above the entrance. Night Rest Hotel. The building looked abandoned, paint peeled off the walls. Windows were clouded with grime. Half the parking lot was buried under weeds and snow. There was not a single other car. I left the engine running for a full minute, trying to convince myself not to go inside. Then a gust of wind slammed something against my car door so hard it made me jump. That decided it. The lobby smelled like mold, sewage, and something faintly metallic. The lights were dim and yellow, like they had not been changed in years. At the front desk, under a weak desk lamp, sat an old woman. She was hunched forward in her chair, crocheting with slow, twitchy movements. Her skin was gray and sagging. Thin, white hair clung to her scalp like cobwebs. She did not look up when I came in. "Hi, do you have any rooms for the night?" Her hand stopped moving. Slowly, she lifted her head and stared at me. Her eyes were cloudy and dull, like glass marbles that had been left in water too long. She looked me up and down without saying a word. Then she reached behind her and pulled a single rusty key from the wall. Without turning around, she slid it across the counter toward me. "How much?" She raised one bony finger and pointed at a half-torn price chart taped to the desk. $10 per night. $10? That alone should have made me leave. But the storm outside was screaming, and I was exhausted. I paid her, took the key, and headed upstairs. The hallway on the second floor was long and narrow. The carpet was stained and damp in places. The only sound was the faint gurgle of pipes in the walls, like something breathing slowly behind them. My room was near the end of the hall. It was exactly as bad as I expected. The bed sheets were stained. Yellow water damage spread across the ceiling like an infection. The bathroom smelled like rot and rust. The lock on the door worked only after I slammed it twice, but I told myself it was only for one night. I left my bag by the wall, kicked off my shoes, and laid down fully dressed. Sleep took me almost instantly. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, my heart racing for no clear reason. Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside my door, followed by low whispers. At least 2 voices, maybe 3. "You will join me inside." I will now. I slid off the bed as quietly as I could and crept to the door. I held my breath and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No one was there. I cracked the door open slowly and stepped into the hallway. The whispers were gone. The entire floor was silent. That is when I saw movement at the far end of the hallway near the stairwell. Something shifted in the darkness. A head pulled back behind the wall the second it realized I had seen it. Someone had been watching me. I did not hesitate. I bolted back into my room and slammed the door shut, throwing my shoulder into it until the lock clicked. That was when the knocking began. 3 soft taps, then silence, then faint, whispering right outside my door. Yeah. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but I was frozen in place. I checked the peephole again. Nothing. The hallway was empty every single time. This went on for hours. Knock. Whisper silence over and over again. At some point near dawn, exhaustion knocked me out. When I woke up, the room was flooded with morning light. My door was wide open. My bag was dumped on the floor. All my belongings were scattered across the room like someone had searched through every inch of my life. And there were muddy shoe prints on the sheets. One on the left side of my waist, one on the right. Like someone had stood over me while I slept and watched. I did not look for the woman at the desk. I grabbed what I could, ran to my car, and peeled out of the parking lot. The storm was gone. The dirt road behind me felt unreal, like it had never existed. It has been years since that night. Nothing was stolen from me because I barely had cash or any valuable items. Whoever broke into my room that night decided to let me go because it was not worth stealing from me or murdering me. Should say I am lucky. I was 34 years old when I took over my grandfather's Roadside hotel in Montana. It sat just off a dead stretch of highway surrounded by snowy woods and distant mountains. It was a snowy Thursday night. Business had been slow. I was half asleep behind the front desk when a man in his late 40s entered with both hands buried deep in his coat pockets. Snow clung to his shoulders, but he did not care to brush it off. He did not even blink much. He just stared at me with a patient, steady expression. I need a room for the night, top floor with mountain view. The way he said it made me feel a bit weird for no clear reason. Room 312 is open, I said after a short pause. When I slid the register across the counter for him to sign, he did not move. Bring it to my room, he said. I need your signature here at the desk. I replied, I just really need to pee. So, you can make an exception, I hope. I thought it would not cause any harm to get the signatures later, so I forced a polite smile and grabbed the key to show him to his room. Strangely, he did not take the key from me, like he was totally committed to not taking his hands out of his pockets. He simply turned and started toward the stairs. I followed behind him. When we reached the 3rd floor, I unlocked the door to room 312 and stepped back. Give me 15 minutes to freshen up and bring the registered sign. I stepped back into the hallway, stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment, and then he slammed the door so hard it rattled the walls. I hurried downstairs and sat behind the desk thinking, does he have a gun? But a few minutes later, I told myself I was overreacting. I had seen strange guests before. Addicts, drifters, people running from something. Maybe he is just another weird creep. 10 minutes later, I took the pen and forced myself back upstairs. The hallway on the 3rd floor was dead silent. When I reached his door, I heard water running from inside the room. I knocked. Come in. I opened the door. The bathroom faced the entry. Steam rolled out into the room. The man stood at the sink with his back facing me. He was washing his hands slowly. Nothing about him felt weird now. I blamed my mind for judging people too quickly. Maybe he really needed to use the washroom. I put the register on the nearby coffee table and waited. While washing his hands, he began making small talk with me. He told me that I have maintained the pipeline and drainage system well, because often at hotels like these, people face poor maintenance. I too initiated the conversation by replying about how I inherited the place from my grandpa, and I am trying to turn it around. As we talked, I scanned the room searching for his belongings. He had no luggage when he entered. Hence, there was only his jacket, which was now lying on the bed. Even from the back, I could tell the man had rough days. There were stains on his once white shirt. The back pocket of his jeans had mud, like he had sat on the ground for hours. The man probably thought I was getting impatient, so he began asking me more questions. And slowly his questions were getting uncomfortable. Do you wash the bathroom with bleach? Yeah. Good. Bleach takes away every stain. I rolled my eyes, thinking how he was wasting my time. At one point, I got really frustrated and asked how long it will take for him to sign the register because I have to go down for some other work. That is when he dropped the soap on the bathroom floor. He ducked down to grab it, and for the first time, I got a glimpse of the sink. The entire white sink had stains of blood mixed with water. That one hand of his, which was grabbing the edge of the sink while he picked up the soap, still had clots of dried blood near his fingernails. It hit me that moment why he refused to take his hands out from his pocket. He had blood on them, and it was clearly not his blood because he had no wounds whatsoever. The man got up with the soap, finished cleaning his hands as much as he could, and then turned to face me. His eyes were wide now, and he had a bigger smile than before. Long night, huh? Some stains just do not come out unless you scrub real deep. I stood terrified, glued to the floor. He wiped his wet hands on my jeans, then picked up his jacket from the bed. While wearing the jacket, he watched me like a hawk. Then he came closer to me and said, "I just needed to use your washroom." I gulped. No words came out of my mouth. He leaned closer, almost breathing on my face. "Do not worry, I cleaned up most of it." I still could not talk. He looked at the mirror, set his hair, and then walked to the door. Before leaving, he looked at me one last time and said, "You seem like the kind who knows when to stay quiet." Good. I like that. He left just as he came. I do not remember how long I stood there watching the remaining bloodstains on the sink and the half-open door of the room. That night, I locked every door and window of the hotel and put up the close sign on the door. I could not sleep the entire night, thinking if I call the cops and the man gets to know, what will he do to me? For weeks after the incident, I kept a close eye on the local paper, hoping to read about a body being found or the man getting caught. But still, no such thing happened. I want to go to the cops, but I am scared for my life.